the biggest factors, in my opinion, to global climate change would be the pollution that is being caused. That is one of the reasons why the climate is changing.
Global climate change is affected by a lot of things, and I think that actually people, like modern science puts a lot of emphasis on like current situations of pollution, and I actually think that a lot of things that contributed to the pollution that we have today comes from like the Industrial Revolution and all of the factories and things that we had like across the country and then across the world, and people just not being aware of like efficiency and what coal mining does to the environment and things like that.
The mining and usage of fossil fuels, mass industrialization, I mean really industrial capitalism, which foregrounded profit and the creation of goods at the expense of natural resources and the natural world around us. And that went on for 150 years, and we're now paying the cost of that.
I believe one of the biggest elements that is causing pollution is cars. You know, we have these people who drive from long distance areas and pollute the air.
Like vehicles back in the day that weren't like, we didn't have such things as like smog checks, and people used diesel fuel, which is really polluting. And so now we have different ways that we can like manufacture our cars so that they're much more efficient and don't release as much smog, which helps to cut down on like what's contributed to like an already really polluted environment.
Well, see, I don't know the difference between climate and weather, but if I was to take a guess, I would say that the climate is the temperature.
The difference between climate and weather has to do with like the long-term like projection of what weather is going to be. So like climate is sort of gauging the way that the environment is changing, and it gauges the way that the environment affects like weather. So I feel like climate is a little more towards elements that affect something. So weather will be like, it's gonna be a little cold that day, and climate is a little more like there's winds that are shifting and moving, or that might have more to do with the way that the currents of like the ocean are moving so that the wind is going with it. So it's a difference between like the effects that we feel, like weather is something we sort of check to know what to wear that day, and then climate is what affects the weather conditions.
I am doing my part contributing to climate health. You know what I'm doing? I am assuring my other peers that there is a future with less pollution.
No, I don't think I'm doing as much as I can. I think it's difficult for people because, like I said, it's a 150-year process of not only industry being built on the decimation of nature, but also things like automobiles, airplanes. Much of how society operates is based on the usage of fossil fuels and on the prioritizing of human need over environmental wellness. So I think we all play a role in desecrating the environment, and it's not necessarily our fault because it's the world we inherited, but I think we all need to do more individually changing.
A lot of people will be like, you know, you need to save your water and stuff. So I take a shower at night because supposedly they say that's how you save water. I don't know, but I believe it. Like, hey, you know, save your water. California started to end up promoting as if you end up washing your car when you shouldn't be, you're wasting a lot of water throughout the day, you know, you get fined for it. Yeah, because, you know, water dries out, a lot of things dries out. It's like, where else can we get water? California poor.
I definitely think I'm doing my part to reduce like my carbon footprint. My car is really efficient on gas, and that was like a thing that I really looked for when I got my car. I also try to cut down as much as possible on driving just in general. I recycle like almost everything. Like I'll rinse off certain things to be able to put it in the recycle, not the trash and things like that. I try to enforce it at work with our students and things like that also. Preserving water is important just because we don't have like a finite amount of water because it rains so our water cycles through, but I mean, it's always important just to like consume like in moderation, like keep your carbon footprint to a minimum as much as possible, and don't waste. Like that's the household I sort of grew up with, is like just don't waste, don't take more than what you need, don't run the water when you don't need to. Just try to be as like minimal as possible.
I'm always using water bottles and recycling them, and then, you know, you get the cash, or you could just sell it, give it to other people that need the cash, like homeless people.
Youth radio doesn't contribute simply because we have bins and we don't utilize them.
I think youth radio kind of tries to, but it takes some education to understand how to use different things. Like, we have a compost bin, a recycle bin, and a trash bin, and sometimes, like, our students, it's mostly the students, I would say, that just don't know how to utilize the different, like, containers and how to actually, like, figure out where your trash is going to go to or where your waste is going to go to.
I feel like youth radio as a company and as a community doesn't really force it, but they should. They just throw it all in one garbage bag and they don't compost anything, they don't recycle anything. So we have bins here that says, like, you know, plastic, recycling, paper, or, like, you know, compost and all that, but they don't really promote it more on youth. And it's like, you know, you're just gonna leave pictures there, we're just gonna be like, all right, it's still a trash can to us. We're not gonna really look at it and say what's recycling, what's compost, and what's just typical garbage.
We have like a recycling bin and a compost bin, which I didn't even know we had a compost bin, and a trash bin, which everything goes in the trash.
So I think if we just had some more education on, like, what, like, constitutes something to go into the compost bin, what makes something go in the recycle, like, our trash bin should be the least full thing as much as possible, because we use different things like compostable plates and compostable cups and biodegradable things, but there's just not enough enforcement and not enough education about where to put your stuff.
I know Youth Radio has done stories on the journalism aspect on climate change, and I know that we do our best to be green, but I think, like I said, more can always be done. We're not an organization that I think is specifically in our mission, that we haven't specifically stated that what we need to do is change the environment. We're talking about helping young people, but being that we're training young people in digital media and giving them a sense of empowerment and responsibility for the world around them, I think we are doing a good amount.
All right, well, I mean, look at us now. We're, like, already broke. We're in the state, like, we're at risk. And it's like, okay, if we're at risk, how much more do we have to cut back on? What, a glass of water a day for us to keep water? And I mean, hey, the healthy people and the people that work out a lot, it's like they rely on water. And it's like a lot of youth, they're into sugary stuff. And that also has a little bit of water in it. So it's like, you know, water is needed. And you need to take a shower. And you need to wash your dishes. And you need to clean your house. You need to wash your car. You need to bathe your pets. So water's gonna be used regardless.
There is not a drought in California. Let me tell everybody on this camera right now who is listening, there is not a drought in California. What happened was there's a law they wanted to be passed, and what they did was they decided to say, you know what, if you pass this law, it'll help the drought because they're gonna build this little lake or whatever and get rid of the old little fuel system. It was like this little tunnel that cleared the water or whatever. They just wanted to build another one. They just wanted that money for it. There was no drought. That's what they used as an excuse in order to build that. That was billions of dollars being wasted. There is no drought. But continue. As far as our climate goes, we are going to continue to have this bipolar weather in California. There will be no snow unless you are in certain areas. There will be rain in the summertime. You know, we'll have floods almost. And we will have the coldest summertime, but the hottest winters ever.
I actually, like, kind of hope that we stabilize, because we were on such a, like, downward spiral, I feel like, for a long time with, like, climate change and all types of environmental issues. So, like, if it were to plateau, that'd be better than it going down, at least. And then, like, 10 years after that, I feel like it might improve or something like that. And so, I don't know, there's sometimes a little bit of hope, like, things will sort of turn around if people are as responsible as possible.
Much of California was a desert and was created, was turned into arable land. We have an amazing mix of sunshine and sea and elevation and valleys here, which makes California one of the most fertile agricultural areas in the world. However, given the delicate balance that crops and plants are grown in, we're now altering that, and I could see California being much like a desert for most of it. And now for parts of it, you can see that when you drive down from San Francisco to LA down the I-5 and you see what they call the Dust Bowl in the 30s, and crops that are no longer sustainable due to the environment. Now because of taxing and financial reasons, but in the future I can see it happening because of environmental change, especially things like stone fruit, which are very delicate. They can't survive what appears to be a minor change in temperature. A 5-degree temperature can completely alter what the earth is able to produce. And that will obviously have humongous ramifications on humans, on our diets, on our economy, and many more things.